In precious metals bull markets, and we're in one, by the way, let's not equivocate about that anymore. When the momentum is established by gold, and that momentum attracts generalist investors to the precious metals market, when those people come down into the precious metals market, market leadership changes from gold to silver. And a short position in a market with the upside volatility that silver has relative to almost any other commodity on the face of the earth, I believe has the ability to deliver truly a religious experience to the short side.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for April 14th through April 21st, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 1 ounce silver Canadian maples at their lowest premium in years at just $3.49 over spot. Next, 1 ounce Gold Philharmonics are only $65 over spot. 1 10th ounce Platinum Britannia are just $29 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always glad to have this widely followed returning guest, Rick Rule, the former CEO of Sprott Asset Management, now the CEO of Rule Investment Media, joins us this Wednesday, April 16, 2025. Rick, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Always a pleasure. I'm always in a bad mood the day after tax day, but I'm smiling to be here with you.
I was going to ask you about that because yesterday was a taxing day for most, and you've been very vocal about your objections to the intrusion of government in our lives in many ways, not the least of which is taxation, which you regard as theft and as well as debasement of the currency, et cetera, et cetera. So any thoughts about that topic before we move on to viewers' questions?
I would just ask your listeners to consider that given that poll after poll after poll show that Americans wouldn't pay tax if there wasn't an enforcement mechanism, that would suggest that taxes are either slavery, but more probably extortion, because they only take by force the fruits of your labor for 5 months as opposed to 12 months of the year. By extension, of course, people need to ask whether they want to be party to the extortion of third parties or whether they want to be victims of extortion themselves. But I won't belabor this. People didn't come to listen to us to hear some cranky old libertarian complain about taxes, but thank you for the opportunity anyway.
Well, it may or may not be a meeting of cranky old libertarians on our channel. But anyway, glad to have you among us. This is a question that No King 190 asks. He says, is 1 monster box of silver ounces enough to get through the global reset? I want infinite ounces, but I'm afraid I'm only going to make it to 500 ounces before the reset.
I think what will happen is that silver will maintain its purchasing power. So in addition to having silver, one must have a lifestyle that one can live within. In the decade of the 70s, Dunnigan, as you will notice, I was there, the purchasing power of the U.S. dollar deteriorated by 75%, which is to say that $1,000 in 1980 bought you $250 worth of goods and services at 1970s pricing. What precious metals really did, although they overshot, was they maintained your purchasing power. So for the gentleman, yes, store some of your wealth in silver, which is highly likely to maintain and perhaps outshoot in terms of purchasing power. But also consider aspiring to a lifestyle that's well within your ability to sustain. Both parts are important.
There's a question about how you foresee the progression of a gold and silver bull market that we're currently in. Chuck Dowell, 1 hour later, says, with everything Rick has seen in the past, during silver bull markets, what kind of swings should we expect to see as we climb a wall of worry? Should we expect to see even upwards of 80% drawbacks before massive upswings, or maybe something similar with only 50% drawback? Obviously, we cannot expect the number to be exact, but can we have some kind of idea what to expect?
You almost certainly need to be prepared for 50% down. down move in bull markets. Precious metals are notoriously volatile, and silver is more volatile than the rest. I'm reminded of the decade of the 1970s, where in the beginning of the decade, gold was up from $35 an ounce to $200 an ounce. In early 1975, the Fed, concerned about inflation, raised the interest rate, which cratered the gold price. It fell from $200 an ounce to $100 an ounce in 9 short months. Of course, the Fed lost its nerve because it cratered the bond market and the stock market too. When the Fed reversed course, the gold price ran from $100 an ounce to $850 an ounce. What's important to remember is that if the underlying conditions favoring a bull market stay intact, the bull market will stay intact too, but it will certainly test your patience, your faith, and your bank account in the interim. And I think probably we're due in the near term for a rest in terms of the gold price. It's also worthy to note that silver has not, as of yet, kept up with gold's pace.
Yeah, there's a question on, Rick, your thoughts about, this is from David Cern. Rick, your thoughts about precious metals backing a new digital monetary system, likely or not?
As long as you say a digital monetary system, not the monetary system. Governments will never back their currencies with gold. They will not do it. It imposes a discipline on them. It reduces their power. And people go into politics for power. The beautiful thing about the age that we're living in, Dunnigan, is that with this proliferation of currencies, there doesn't need only to be official sector currencies. A currency can be whatever you and I decide it can be. It can be physical gold, or coming soon to a wallet near you, a gold token. We will see this in the near term. It is highly unlikely that this currency will enjoy any official backing whatsoever, and that doesn't particularly matter to me. I'm a consumer of currencies, and I love the fact that a whole bunch of people are out there trying to invent new ones which will serve me better. A physical gold token, backed by reputable organizations, 100% secured by gold and redeemable for gold, I think would be a superb currency. And I believe that it's technologically feasible now, and I think it will occur 2 or 3 years from now.
Ricky House says, has the U.S. government been making counterfeit money since 1964? Our definition of the dollar is, quote, a coin struck in silver. Where is the silver in our coinage now?
Well, of course, I guess the strict definition of counterfeit has to do with the introduction of illegal money. By definition, then the U.S. dollar isn't counterfeit because, according to the U.S. government, it isn't illegal. Certainly, one could argue that a floating abstraction, which is to say a dollar, backed by nothing, with the exception of the might and the force of law of the United States government, is by its very nature counterfeit. But I will leave that to the questioner to answer his own rhetorical question. I use U.S. dollars because they're a medium of exchange that's broadly accepted in the jurisdiction in which I live. I maintain a small amount of savings in U.S. dollars because I know that I will need U.S. dollar liquidity. But I save in other asset classes, including gold, not in U.S. dollars.
Bill M. from Florida asks, Rick, do you think you can logically analyze what is coming based on the standards of the past, or are you starting to see that we may be entering a historic global reset that may even shock the most experienced and educated, such as yourself?
That's a bigger question, probably. I think history rhymes as opposed to repeats, and I think that many of the lessons of history will be useful for us. There are, of course, some differences. There are more of us. Information travels faster. There's much more credit in society, so a dislocation will inconvenience some more than it's inconvenienced others. And of course, we need to remember that through technology, unlike any period in recorded history, we have the fairly easy ability to kill everybody on Earth if the big thinkers that run us make some mistakes and lose their sense of humor. So I guess the stakes are higher. But, our ability to muddle through is higher too. When I do my truly scary arithmetic about the aggregate obligations of the U.S. government relative to their ability to steal from me and how hopeless that looks, I need to remember that the circumstances has looked lousy for 50 years. And the United States in particular is still a culture where a group of kids can commandeer a garage in Sunnyvale and out pops Google or Apple or Facebook or something like that, which is to say, despite the fact that I'm very nervous about our collective stupidity, I'm delighted that through technology, our individual creativity and tenacity has at least thus far financed our collective stupidity. So while the arithmetic would suggest that pessimism should be the order of the day, I remain long-term an optimist.
We have a couple questions here about platinum, which we haven't spoken about yet today. Watchman ZT2CF says, platinum used to be 3 times the price of gold. Now its dollar value is less than a third of gold. I'd like to hear Rick's take on platinum's role in the next few years.
Good instance. I've been adding a little bit of platinum speculatively. The bullish case for me around platinum is, I guess, twofold. One, the price declines have accompanied Russia's need for cash. That happened in 1992. When the Russians need cash, they sell whatever they have on the shelf, and that has included platinum and palladium, where they're the world's second largest producer. The story around platinum and palladium has been hurt because the big thinkers of the world, Greta Thunberg, Angela Merkel, people like that, have convinced us that the internal combustion engine is going the way of the dodo, and the principal use of platinum is in auto catalysts. My suspicion is that the internal combustion engine will be the primary mode of global transportation, even after I've shed my mortal coil, and I'm a fairly healthy 72-year-old. What that means is that the expectation for the price of platinum in the future is grievously understated. I would ask your questioners to look around for groups of young people with protest signs saying more smog, more smog. The truth is, if the internal combustion engine lasts till 2065, the need for auto catalysts will last until 2065 too. Meanwhile, on the supply side, platinum is produced really in 2 countries, South Africa and Russia. Any political disruption in either place, not an unlikely event, would be very difficult on the supply side of platinum. And given that the demand side of platinum is price inelastic, that could do wonderful things to price. Is this going to happen for sure? I have no earthly idea. Is it a speculation worth considering if one has surplus cash and the emotional stability to handle volatility? Yeah, absolutely. Something I've done.
You mentioned big thinkers several times, and there certainly are forces that have deep enough pockets to move markets, and we've talked to you about that in the past several times. I Fight for JC says, why, if they do, the shadow masters manipulate the price of silver? Why do they need such large short positions on silver?
I think that well, first of all, I think this is going to turn around and bite them. I wouldn't have said that 3 or 4 years ago, but I do think it's going to turn around and bite them. The Wall Street guys do what's easy. And for 40 years, beginning in 1982, the U.S. dollar was ascendant and precious metals were descendant. Silver being more volatile than gold, it was an easier thing to short. The second thing is that the silver market is extraordinarily leveraged. Many days, 100 or 200 times the amount of silver available for good delivery trades hands in the futures market. What that means is that it's remarkably easy to short for big people. These masters of the universe create short ladders going out 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. Borrow a fair amount of physical silver, sell that silver in the overnight market when the liquidity is the least, so that they can have the biggest impact on the silver market, and then look for the price signal from the physical market to impact the futures market. If somebody is short let's say $1 billion worth of silver in the futures market, and somebody uses $50 or $75 million worth of silver, they lose, say, $10 million on selling into the physical market. In effect, you're investing $10 million in your loss in the physical trade to make $50 or $60 million in the long-term trade. This works until it doesn't. I have now been through 3 real bull markets in precious metals in my life. And I don't know why it's true, but what I do know that is true is that in precious metals bull markets, and we're in one, by the way, let's not equivocate about that anymore. When the momentum is established by gold, and that momentum attracts generalist investors to the precious metals market, when those people come down into the precious metals market, market leadership changes from gold to silver. Why? I don't know. Maybe because of the lower unit price. But what I do know is that you won't need Rick Rule to tell you when you're in a silver market. And a short position in a market with the upside volatility that silver has relative to almost any other commodity on the face of the earth, I believe has the ability to deliver truly a religious experience to the short side, irrespective of the structure of the market. These short guys do whatever's easy. I remember in the decade of the 70s, there was a lot of manipulation in precious metals markets to the upside because that was the bias in the market. Wall Street learns thoroughly, but they learn slowly. They do now what made them money for 40 straight years, and they will do it until, like 2008, they learn one of these character building lessons.
You were speaking a little while ago about cryptocurrencies and other forms of exchange. Daniel 12.4 says, can you see a time when paper dollars are thrown into the streets and people are forced to use digital money, with some refusing and using gold and silver for trade?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think a central bank digital currency is what our government and most governments would like to use. There has been talk about doing with digital currency what the Zimbabweans did with paper currency, which is to say to put an expiration date on it. And there will be a group of people around there who have no sense of humor for that. I don't see that sort of draconian future coming to the United States right now, if for no other reason that there are 400 million guns in private circulation in the United States, and there's only so much aggravation Americans can take. There are easier ways for our government to steal from us right now than to steal a currency. They can cause inflation, which is very popular. They don't get criticized for it. In fact, they get reelected for it. They can run up debt and deficits, which is a different form of theft. They can raise taxes, particularly on the rich. They don't need to confiscate your currency. They don't need to confiscate your IRA. Doing so would run a risk that passive opposition to the government became active opposition. And the government is aware of the fact that there are 400 million guns in private circulation.
Another question, again, tactically, about people positioning themselves in the face of a hostile environment financially. The Nivek videos ask, Rick, what is the best way to move, quote, real money abroad?
I don't know the answer to that. That's a bigger question than I mean, I can tell you what I do. I write the FinCEN letter on myself. I tell the government how much I'm moving and where, and I tell them why. I've actually filed a FinCEN on myself saying that I was wiring $50,000 to Canada for the purpose of buying physical gold outside the reach of the U.S. government. I put that on a U.S. government document. I suspect that those documents go in a great big warehouse where nobody reads them until they want you. And if they want you, they're going to get you. So I know that the gentleman is looking for a more covert answer than that, but I'm not a very covert guy. I'm just not. I do what I do. I document it as thoroughly as I can so that I avoid a perjury or an obstruction charge, and I live my life.
Michael Gavovsky says, Rick, what indications should a precious metal investor look for that would suggest that the current precious metals bull market run is getting close to ending?
Well, that's a great question. I actually answered that question on your show about 2 years ago, Donegan. I don't know if you remember that. But I was thinking about that, in fact, yesterday. I don't know how to answer the question for that listener, but let me tell you how I'm answering it for myself. I think that gold does well during periods of time when people are concerned about the maintenance of their purchasing power in fiat-denominated instruments. So I'm going to keep a substantial position in gold until a few things happen. One, the federal budget is balanced. Two, we have a fiscal regime in place that will handle and service $100 trillion in unfunded entitlement liabilities. Three, until the interest rate on the U.S. Treasury exceeds what I consider to be the real rate of inflation, which I consider to be between 7.5% and 8.5%, and until aggregate federal debt is lower than GDP. Now, if you add those four factors together, it may be that I have to hold my physical gold until the 12th of never. But I don't have any artificial peg in place that says when gold goes to 3,500, I'm going to sell. Or if the gold price falls from 3,500 to 3,200, I'm going to sell. Remember that we measure gold in a floating abstraction called the US dollar. When other forms of savings appear to me more attractive than gold, believe me, I will sell gold and buy those. But measured clearly in a US dollar circumstance, as I say, I'm buying gold to shield my purchasing power from the declining purchasing power available to me in conventional savings products. And until they see those threats disappear, I'll continue to hold my gold.
This is a tightly related question. If you feel like you've already covered it entirely, then that's fine. Joe's SL500 says, at what point do you sell a portion of your precious metals? I think you just said that. And what would you then invest in? You hinted at that.
Yeah, I don't know what I'll invest in. I remember in 1982, sadly, the decline in the gold price and other commodity prices decimated my own personal net worth. But some of what little I had left, I was able to invest in water utilities, which were then yielding 16%. Including, or not including, frankly, the ownership of a commodity that I consider to be undervalued and scarce. So I don't know what it is that I will diversify into when and if I diversify out of gold. It'll depend on what's really cheap and what's really hated that I understand at the time.
Faisal Mudir asks, your thoughts on funds holding physical uranium and physical copper in this global inflationary age?
I'm particularly still attracted to the uranium business, particularly because of the disconnect between the term price and the spot price. I'm attracted to uranium, too, because it's attracting so much hate. There's nothing I like quite so much as hate. It's wild that when I would post things that were dubious about uranium, and uranium was over $100 a pound, people questioned my sanity. Now that I'm talking about buying uranium again when it is half that price, people still question my sanity. And while my sanity is in fact suspect, not on this particular topic. With regards to copper, my nervousness about physical funds around copper is that copper is cheap enough that the costs associated with a physical trust, particularly storage costs, relative to the price of commodities, makes those funds an inefficient way to hold copper. So yes, I own a fair bit of the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, and I own none of the Copper Trust whatsoever.
Related question here from Steve Clark, 3530. Is uranium a 2025 play? Sounds like you're looking at it, yes. Or are gold and silver miners a better choice?
I think for 2025, gold and silver miners are probably a better choice. I have an awful lot of gold and silver miners, and the hate is more intense in uranium. So I'm buying the uranium, but I don't know that I'll get paid until 26 or 27. I've been paid ferociously well in the gold stocks in particular this year. So I consider that the catch-up which will occur in the gold stocks probably occurs before a catch-up occurs in uranium stocks. I consider uranium stocks to be cheaper, however.
Jenstone 4951 says, thoughts on West Red Lake Gold, speaking of gold mining companies.
I'm a shareholder of West Red Lake. I'm nervous about the fact that it would appear to me that they are moving or attempting to move that mine to full production without a reasonable bankable feasibility study. These are very high quality people, and it's a good asset. And they acquired the producing infrastructure ludicrously cheaply, so they may pull it off. I'm always nervous about responding to market pressures to move things to production before they're likely completely ready, and I have that nervousness here. You will note, however, that despite that nervousness, I'm long the stock.
Shifting gears to Battle Bank, these two questions are about that. I'll go ahead and just read them together. Jamie Cush says, when will we be able to put our metals into Battle Bank? And Felix the Cat 69 says, can we get a detailed update on Battle Bank with a rundown of what has been the holdup since the merger with the established bank that was going to circumvent the regulators?
Well, the merger that circumvents the regulators doesn't circumvent the regulators. What it does is prevent the FDIC from not issuing us a bank charter. And they didn't not issue us one. They just didn't issue us one. We were stuck in regulatory limbo for 4 years. We have sought to avoid that problem by purchasing a small bank in Wisconsin. That bank itself requires the permission of the regulator, and the change of business plan also requires the permission of the regulator. It doesn't require FDIC permission, however. It requires a tougher regulator called the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. Ironically, that tougher regulator approved us last time in 97 days. In answer to the question, my suspicion is that the recapitalization proposal and the application acceptance will occur in the calendar month of June, and that we will be open for business in the calendar month of June or the calendar month of July. Believe me, all systems are ready to go. We've had a long time to prepare for this moment. We're engaged in, I think, very constructive dialogue with our regulators. And it's never that the communication with the FDIC was unconstructive. It's just that the FDIC, I guess, became politicized or something. And we would have 6 month periods of time where there was no communication whatsoever, which was sort of frustrating.
Mm-hmm. Rick, you've got an upcoming conference in Boca Raton, Florida. We'll be together there. And here's my lovely pen from last time we were there. And it'll be my 4th time there. And there's a lot to be learned, more than just amazing contacts to be made, amazing insights to be gained. Can you tell people what they will miss if they don't take it in, and what options they have for doing it either in person or remotely?
Let me start by saying, this conference has gone on for 30 years, and this is absolutely, positively, without a doubt, going to be the best year. Every year has been good. This is going to be really, truly spectacular. Why? Well, first of all, my political keynote speaker is David Stockman. The chief political issue in front of the United States is debt and deficits and the so-called Department of Government Efficiency. David Stockman wrote a book called The Triumph of Politics. He did that because he was the director of the Office of Management and Budget in the Reagan administration. And he watched a wonderful mandate that Mr. Reagan had to reduce the size of government be derailed by Republican and Democratic congressmen within 6 months of his inauguration. But more recently, Mr. Stockman has written a book called How You Actually Cut $2 Trillion from the Federal Budget. There is nobody that is better placed to talk about the budget and debt and deficits than David Stockman. There is nobody better. This guy is not some hack from journalism school. This is a guy who speaks in a biblical sense from the belly of the beast. He ran the original Department of Government Efficiency. That's critical. And you'll notice a common theme. We'll have Daniela DiMartino Booth talking about the Fed. She's not a failed journalist. She was a researcher for the Fed. Nomi Prinz will talk about the corrupt structure of Wall Street. She was a partner at Goldman Sachs. Again, the belly of the beast. Jim Rickards will talk about the leverage nature of financial structures. He does this because he was general counsel at Long-Term Capital Management. That failure almost bankrupted Wall Street. It's important that you get your big picture perspective, not from the Wall Street Journal, not from CNBC, not from CBC, but from players operating from the belly of the beast, talking about institutions that they were part of running. That's what we do. Once you get through that, and by the way, it's not pleasant. It really is not pleasant, but it's informative, and you have to understand it. Once you get through it, you will find analysts and portfolio managers who, I mean, now with gold over $3,000, you're getting a few main Wall Street guys who can actually spell gold. They can actually get through those four letters. At our conference, those guys don't come. We have people who've made money in the precious metals business and made money in the natural resource business for 3 decades. Probably more importantly, we have a feature called The Living Legends, where people who have built multi-billion-dollar natural resource companies from scratch tell you how they did it. Tell you how the experience made them better investors. They tell you how to identify the $25 million market cap that's going to be a $4 billion or $5 billion market cap. Again, from the belly of the beast. The guys who did it. Every exhibitor at my conference, as you know, Dunnigan, is owned in accounts owned or managed by me, which means that every exhibitor has been vetted. At every other investment conference I know, the qualification to be an exhibitor is a check that cashes. That's it. We turn down more exhibitors than we accept. And we have a core of attendees who've been coming for years. We've been doing this for 30 years. The idea that all the information in the dais, in the conference emanates from the dais out to the audience is ridiculous. There's hundreds of people there who are very wealthy, who are interested in making more money and preserving their wealth. The conversations that you have at the coffee machine, at the bar, with the person to your right, with the person to your left, are invaluable. In fact, I had a guy email me about 8 years ago. He says, Rick, following Robert Friedland and then Ross Beatty around your exhibit floor, seeing what booths they stopped in front of and lurking and hearing what questions they asked was worth more than the price of admission. I got the whole rest of the conference for free. As you point out, you can attend live in Boca Raton, which would be my preference, or you can attend online via live stream. We had attendees from 33 countries last year. In either case, we're going to give you more than 50 hours of programming over 4 days, more than you can absorb. So we're going to give you access to the tapes, which you're going to need. I put on the conference, and I have to consult the tapes myself. And finally, Dunnigan, and this is really, truly spectacular. We've done this for so long, and we've done it so well, that we're able to make attendees this unique pledge. Whether you attend live or via live stream, if for any reason you don't think you got your money's worth, I'll give you your money back. Full money back guaranteed. Satisfaction. Absolutely no financial risk to your attending this conference. There is no other conference I know of in the world that vets every exhibitor, and certainly no other conference in the world that I know of that has an upfront announced full satisfaction or full refund other than our conference.
Folks, if you look in the description of this video, you will find a link to register for the conference. You'll also be supporting Liberty and Finance by doing it that way. And you'll see when you get there that you have either the live conference or the remote options available. Either one will get you access to the talks that Rick's referring to, and either one will support Liberty and Finance along the way. Rick, if people want to find out more about Battle Bank and also have you grade their natural resource portfolio, what should they do?
Thank you for that opportunity. Anybody who cares what I have to say about natural resources and could suffered through today's dismal interview should go to ruleinvestmentmedia.com. Once you're there, list your natural resource stocks. Please no crypto, please no pot stocks, please no tech stocks, just natural resource stocks. And I'll rank them for free, no obligation. Rank them 1 through 10, 1 being best, 10 being worst. I'll comment on individual issues if I think my comments are worth hearing. And as Dunnigan suggested, I'm also involved in something called Battle Bank. If for some reason you're unhappy with your current bank, I suspect that's everybody that's listening to this interview, If you'd like to have one account that pays you interest on your checking, as an example, no bells, no whistles, no hooks, no fees, come to Battle Bank. If you want to save outside the U.S. dollar in 20 different currencies in this period of currency turmoil, come to Battle Bank. If you'd like to buy and sell precious metals, or more importantly, if you already have a relationship with a dealer like Miles Franklin, and you'd like to borrow money against your physical gold, silver, or platinum and palladium, come to Battle Bank. We believe that you're a good credit. We believe that precious metals are good collateral. We would love to discuss giving you access to the capital that you have tied up in precious metals without you having to sell the precious metals. Battlebank.com, or else in the question and comment section at Rural Investment Media, simply write in bank.
We're going to make sure and put those links in the description of this video to help everyone out. And Rick, as always, just thank you for taking the time to be here with our viewers and subscribers on Liberty and Finance. And folks, just want to remind, the difference between viewers and subscribers is half of our viewers are not yet subscribers, and it's free. You can do it two ways. You can click the subscribe button on YouTube. That's probably a good idea. They'll notify you if you click the bell of everything we produce on YouTube. We're also on several other platforms. If you don't want to miss a thing, make sure you give us your email address and we'll keep it private. Go to libertyandfinance.com, put in your email address, click submit, make sure you confirm on the confirming email, and you'll get one email in your inbox per day with all of our interviews with Rick and any of our other guests, as well as weekly specials. You won't miss a thing. libertyandfinance.com. Rick, on behalf of all of our viewers and subscribers, as always, thanks for joining us on Liberty and Finance.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'm delighted that I'll be hosting the Kaiser family in Boca Raton.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for April 14th through April 21st, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 1-ounce silver Canadian maples at their lowest premium in years at just $3.49 over spot. Next, 1-ounce Gold Philharmonics are only $65 over spot. 1 10th-ounce Platinum Britannia are just $29 over melt. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.